How important do you think it is for this team to get over the line in a tight game like that at the start of such a big series?
5 test match series, it's always nice to be 1-0 up. There's a lot of work to go, but I think the pleasing factor for us is that we know we've got a lot more improvement within the way that we play. We've seen, obviously, England, the way they go about it. We've had a first-hand look at it, so we'll learn plenty from that and be able to make the necessary adjustments. And clearly there were some batters that missed out in this game as well that have time in, from a period of time perform for us. So there's a lot of growth left in this team, and England will probably say the same.
Are they adjustments that you can't make just during the course of the game on the fly, that you need to have a bit of time to consider once you've seen how their whole game plan plays out?
No, we feel as though the way that we went about it was planned, and we executed what we wanted. There were some different things thrown at us at different times, clearly, that surprised us, which is no doubt like any other game of cricket. And then you've got to factor in the surface. I think day one was potentially the best day for batting. Sun was out, and they put some pressure on us, and we can no doubt learn from that.
Anything that really surprised you? Something that you thought you hadn't foreseen?
We've seen the way they go about it, but they were ultra aggressive. I think Scott Boland, that sort of matchup probably surprised us how aggressive they were against Scott. So that's something that we can look at and find better ways through. The way they played Nathan Lyon was predictable in some ways, and I thought his output in the game, 8 wickets under that type of pressure, just showed clearly he's a world-class performer, but to be able to navigate through that and give us an opportunity to get the game to where it got to, chasing 280 odd on the last day or over the last couple of days was very impressive.
Is there a vindication, or there was some talk early doors in this game about your tactics being too defensive? England made a few points about that as well. Is there a vindication in some way?
No vindication. I think there should be more celebration. 2 styles coming together and producing a test match like that. So there's certainly no vindication. We'll go about it our way. England will go about it their way, and we'll see what happens at the end of the series. So, we're clear on the way that we play. I suggest that over the last 18 months, it's pretty clear the way that we do go, and we feel as though we've got some great strengths around that. We'll play to our strengths, and England will play to theirs. So over 5 test matches, we'll see what unfolds.
Just further on that, with the 2 different styles, I mean, is there an admiration, the way they played moved the game on forward quite significantly at times, especially with the rain, so that we ended up in this position where there's sort of playing against a lot of teams who might have ended up being in a position where a draw was meandering along. Is there some sort of admiration for the fact that they sort of did that?
There's respect for the way they're going about their cricket. Games of cricket unfold and teams push for results. We start out at the start of a game looking to win the game. So I'm sure that if it had been any other game, there would have been a push at certain times. And we feel as though we're pretty adaptable across conditions, situations, and we've got different ways of getting to a result as well. So didn't quite see that this game. England put plenty of time into the game on day one. So as I said, we've got great respect for our opponent, and the way that we played is the way that we want to go about it. And there'll be some nuances to that over the series, and some specific things, selection, structure of team, the way that we go about it, that will change across the series. There's no doubt about that, but that'll be forced upon by conditions.
Do you think you think you should have pulled some of those guys up a bit sooner from time to time? I mean, Joe Root's classic at just dropping the ball behind point and running, and he probably got his first 10 runs in easy singles there. There was probably a few more examples of that at various stages where easy singles, easy rotation.
Yeah, I think at the end of the game you saw England did a similar thing. So you can always look at a certain phase of the game and suggest that it should be done otherwise. And that's a beautiful thing about our game. There's so many opinions around how things should be done, and we'll clear going this game the way that we're going to operate. And I think Pat did an exceptional job to get the game to that situation. So whether a deep point is going to be discussed heavily over the series, or whether it's a catching mid-wicket, or whether you should have 2 slips, all those conversations go on. So we feel as though that what we set out to achieve, we did pretty well.
You touched on selection earlier. What gave Josh and Scott, I suppose, in particular, the nod in the end over Mitch? And how do you assess that? I know it's a week out heading to their test.
No, it's 5 days out.
5 days.
5 days, sorry. Yeah.
We've got 5 days. It's conditions based, and we've said that from the get-go. We understand that it's going to be huge demand on all our fast bowlers to get through the 5 test matches, plus the extra. Plus the extra of the World Test Championship. So there's 6 test matches. So we've got to be able to navigate through that. Josh was fit and available. We felt like he was the best on this surface, and it might be Mitch next game. Who knows?
What was it in particular about the conditions that swayed you that you thought Josh was better than Mitch in these circumstances?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that the fact that the line and length, we valued the line and length potentially over the left arm, swing, and we didn't feel as though we may have got swinging conditions here. So it's really down to a gut feel at selection. It can be critiqued any way you want. We feel as though looking back on it, potentially Mitch could have played a role. There's no doubt about that. But we felt like when we went into the game with all the information that we had, that we made the best decision. And we took Starkey on that journey. He understands it and understands the fact that there is 4 more Test matches ahead, and he's got a pivotal part to play within that.
Getting pretty keen for the guys to have had 2 days off the last 2 days. It's been difficult keeping the pads off in the nets for Steve and Marnus, given their failures.
There'll be no doubt a craving for more net sessions from Marn and Smudge. They're disappointed that they missed out in this game, but I think any time the Australian cricket team can win without those two performing at a high level is always a positive. So as I said earlier, we've got some areas that we can improve. There's some growth within the team, and there's 2 obvious ones. I mean, it's very rare that Marn and Smudge miss out in the same Test match. So that's an appetising thought.
How's on the thought process that went into
Yeah, I think there's always a curiosity to get better. So we're not going to stall that in any way. And as I said, they'll come up with different plans, different movements. They've seen what England are going to do and how they're going to attack them. And they're probably 2 of the greatest problem solvers that we've had over a period of time. So you'd expect them to go back to the drawing board. Michael Divinito will be part of that process. And, they'll come out pretty clear on what they need to do next innings. But, there's no issues there.
Just on what we're chatting about with the quicks in terms of the thought process that went into this first test, how much has been mapped out for the second test and I guess even beyond, just in terms of, is there like a pencil plan that you might have in mind of who's suits what ground?
Yes, there is, in short, but the reality is that our bowlers didn't bowl as many overs as we probably expected in this test match. There's a longer turnaround, so you can have a penciled plan, but the reality is you see how they pull up, what the conditions are when we get to Lords, and you make a decision with what's in front of you. So the good news is that we're going to have everyone available. There's no injuries out of the game, so we've got some decisions to make. And selection decisions are always hard, but as I said, we go through a process to get to that point, taking the conditions, and then we make a decision from there. So the issue is that we've got great depth in that fast bowling unit, and that's one of our great strengths.
What have you made David want to start to the tour?
I think pretty positive, really, to be honest. I think the way that he moved in the second innings, the intent that he had, along with the first innings at the Oval in the World Test Championship final, I think anyone watching that would say that those movement patterns are good. The intent that he had, the way he was going about it is the way that we want David to play, and he put a bit of pressure back on to England, albeit didn't get the big score that he wanted, but I think he put a lot of pressure on them, and none for 70. I think it was looking pretty impressive, and then he feathers one through. So there's a big score around the corner, no doubt.
And just on Alex Carey, important contributions in the final against India, important contributions both sides of the stumps here. Just him as how he continues to develop each challenge he seems to get in Test cricket after what was a bit of a tough tour of India with the bat, at least.
I think the keeping's been exceptional. We highlighted that this morning, reflecting on day 4. I've got to get that right. So we highlighted that on the morning of day 5, reflecting on day 4. He's been impressive. Every challenge that he's come up against, in terms of the conditions, and this creates a new problem for keepers standing back, the wobble, and there was a lot of spin on the surface as well. But the way that he's going about his work with the gloves it's as good as I've seen an Australian wicket keep for a long period of time.
Andrew, just one on the overall here. So you and Pat have sort of tried to foster an environment of calmness, sort of rational thought, working through things. You've done things like go to Pakistan and last through a whole series. You've won a close Test match, which, if you talk to former Australian players, Australia doesn't win many close Test matches. Like, do you like that those sort of results are being spawned out of that environment?
Yeah, I think any time that you win a Test match, it's probably you go back to your preparation and you think about the decisions that you made, and it's probably a reflection on them. But ultimately, Pat out there making decisions within game time. It's on him a lot of the time to get that right. We can support, give options, and we think, a lot of the time we don't get everything right, but people will critique that. But I think over the journey that, the way Pat's gone about his work and been systematic in the way that he's done things, along with the gut feel, I think he's led Australia really well.
You guys were on my culture. You guys were Red Bull?
I think their dressing room will go through the same systems and processes to get to a decision, and that's up for them to decide. We've got a second spinner here in Todd Murphy, and we've got some spin depth there. So what England do is up to them, and the decisions they make, they'll know what they're doing and the direction they're heading in. It's not for us to critique.
If your team was 8 for 393 on the first day with half an hour to go and your best batsman was 100 and flying, would you suggest to the captain that he declare?
Oh, I'm not here to talk about what England do, Mal. So
This is hypothetical.
yeah, hypothetical. I don't do hypotheticals that well. So I think you can probably ask the hypothetical to Steve Smith and Marnus if they were not out potentially. But not for me to critique what England do and how they go about it. As I said at the top, the styles will mesh across this series, and they'll be slightly different, and people will critique whether it's right or wrong, and that's up for others to judge over a sustained period of time. But for us at the moment, it's to enjoy the win. I think that game should be celebrated the way it should be, rather than sitting back and looking at this team should have done that. And I just don't think it's a time for that. I think it's more a celebration of a game of cricket that was fantastic.